Good evening, welcome to you, my YouTube channel. My name is David Okun, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I'm also thankful to everyone who have been attending regularly every time I post a video, and people attending to watch as much as they can. We are a work in progress, like I said before, and I'm so grateful to the people and for the opportunity. Thank you, YouTube, for the opportunity of working with your platform, on your platform, with your guidance and support. Every little help, whatever, with also the information system, the people who have been producing, things like computer or even mobile phone. Without these technologies, we will not be able to do very much. Thank you to the government of the world here in the United Kingdom, where I am, and also thanking the global governments for their efforts to do development, and also supporting humanity in what I refer to as the cultural economy. The cultural economy, in my defining, propose clearly that it is the respecting of individual as a person, and also respecting other people and their spaces, and also respecting their work, respecting their property, and prioritizing humanity over and above everything else. The combining of culture and development produce a good format, a platform for which to do progress. And as a species, we have made a lot of progress in the decades, and I'm so grateful that we came a long way. We are on the verge of making breakthroughs in technology, in terms of development, and also we are building our economies using a system of economy, the economic system known as capitalism. My disagreeing with capitalism is where it becomes extreme in the marketized, in competitive aspect, where there appear to be a lacking of cultural proficiency in valuing humanity over and above other factors. We as a society now are drifting on the other side, failing in our cultural literacy, so as to produce results which are undesirable, to the effect that humanity is now being ignored in the majoritarian context, where wealth in under capitalism has drifted to concentrate more in the hand of the few, taking money and the other estates and other wealth and opportunities away from the many into the other few, concentrating this to produce an intensity of power platform where a few individuals now rule, holding sway over nations here in the United Kingdom, also in addition to countries in Europe, America, and Asia, as well as in Africa. We are talking about globalization in the political context, and where capitalism is now extremitized by right-wing politics in Europe and also across the globe. We are looking at in Africa, for example, where there is a fundamental need to produce a welfare system. I've said in this video, if you're watching this video, watch it with the rest of the video I produced in the series. If not, that I will be repeating some of the points in every video I produce as such, to illustrate the fact, to the effect that people will understand the incident of the economic system, where there is a extremitizing of society because of political ideology, thinking everything private is good, everything public is bad. which is false. And we are now privatizing everything, shutting down the public sector, impoverishing the many, and there is a middle class who still feel they are actually doing well, and they are doing well. They are probably either here in the UK, also in the developing world, increasingly in the developing world, like in Africa. The middle class are now accounting for more than 50% of the population. The rest of the population, the 20%, by rough estimate, are at the bottom of the pile, the ones in the UK who are subjected to the exercising of the minimum wage, but also the lower pay rate, less than 30,000 per annum before tax. In other words, gross before deducting tax and national insurance and all the other expenses. So we are talking about a net of less than 30,000 in pay to the people at the lower of the scale. These are the ones who have been subjected to so many troubles in terms of wealth accessing and also producing, failing to produce capacity to access healthcare and also education, housing, food, energy, and all the rest of it. This is a problem now on the increase, with the government of the world, especially here in the United Kingdom, is actually to be aware that if they cannot really solve the problem of extreme poverty to the 20% of the people in, say, the UK, but also across the globe, if that cannot be done to prepare the globe for a more peaceful relationship on the basis of accessing world resources more liberally, then failing to do that, we are going to create an extreme society increasingly, and we are going to be practicing a form of wickedness, which is going to create a lot of instability. I have repeated this point, and some people may or may not be offended listening to me over and again. But these points are repeatable because they are quite fundamental, and because of the nature of social media, my expectation is that some people might be listening to it for the first time. Over 100,000 people, 100 million people access the service on YouTube. They use the YouTube platform every day on a daily basis. More than, I think, 2 billion every month. Do the maths. I'm not a good mathematician, and if you are, then God bless you. We are today going to talk specifically. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you have subscribed, thanks so much for doing so. And also viewing, watching the videos, sharing family and friends, like as always, and being fantastic. I found the way you have conducted your support. And I'm so grateful for people who have been giving particularly positive feedback, but also whatever feedback you prefer to provide. I'm so welcoming of whatever you say. Be positive, be nice. If you are nasty, then one way or the other, I will seek. I don't have anybody now to moderate my channel yet. But if I find somebody who would moderate my channel, there haven't been so many nasty people on my channel because we are not very many anyway. We are about 500 subscribers on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And if you care, if you are willing, then you can actually work with the rest of the team to kind of support this channel. If you value, if you don't value it, that is okay. Coming back to this topic, which is very important to me, which I have taken a lot of time to work on the basis that we do development, we do family, we do education, we do charity as well. We work so hard. So it's why today, the topic of today, inadvertently today, we're going to talk in the UK about work. And so work is the source of our success. If we work, we succeed. If we don't work, we don't succeed. And so the struggle continues. Every which way you look at it, if you are to succeed, you have to work. And that is the basis of my topic, beginning from the last video, continuing with this video as well. Work is extremely important in the United Kingdom, and I believe also in a country like your country, in Africa, in Asia, in the UK here, in whatever country you live, there is the validity for you to work in order to succeed. That is a very important principle, whether you live in the UK, whether you live elsewhere. This material I'm going to go through, this information is going to be focusing on the United Kingdom. And like the rest of the information, the materials I produce within the other videos, they are mainly focusing on the United Kingdom, because what happened in the United Kingdom also happens across the globe. So in understanding what happened in the UK, you will do well to yourself to understand what happens elsewhere around the world. Stay tuned, continue watching. Let us continue to look at the specific in the United Kingdom in terms of work. So thank you so much. Let us carry on where we left, and we're talking about work. We are talking of in a situation. Put yourself in a situation where you are a worker and you are in trouble with your employer, or somebody, a friend or a family member is in trouble with their employer, or you are talking to an advisor, a legal advisor. Then you are in a situation of solving a problem of employment, which is a type of work. Employment is a type of work, like I said. So you are identifying employment problems by diagnosing a problem. You are looking at certain checklists, as it were, and something called checklist general requirement. What your situation, and situations are really important because it helps in the diagnosis of certain problems as they occur, and also whether you are working, whether you have stopped work, or whether you're still working for your employer. These are the elements you look at, and as you try to empower yourself to help yourself or to help a family member or a friend who is facing employment issue with the employer. Normally there are relationship between employer and employee, and these are most of the time it goes smoothly within contract or within the statutory remits. Sometimes it doesn't, and if there is a problem, that is when you identify what problem might or might not be, and then you follow certain steps to try and solve those problems. And it's the rule of thumb, problems are for solving. So you're looking at information which might help to diagnose your problem, and if you are an advisor, your client's problem, and then you find a relevant method of solving one problem or another. And then you may use certain approaches when you are an advisor, if you are not an advisor, to actually process the information. So you have the kind of general requirements, which is a rule of thumb in terms of collecting data. Your name, or if you are an advisor, your client's name, date of birth, employer's name, employer's address. Also, if you can be contacted at your employer's address, and if you are an advisor, if you can contact somebody at your their employer's address, telephone number of their employers, and also employers' business, the nature of the same, what kind of business your employer is doing. These are the information which can be gathered to kind of like kickstart solving problem of employment as a factor of work. And an estimated number of employees. How many employees as an estimate employees by your employer? How long have you worked for your employer, and whether when your employment start, and when did it start, and also when was the last day you worked, or when did your notice expire? we will be exploring this if you're working for yourself. The self-help, actually, empowerment is the name of the game in this remit. Employment is a very specific infrastructure employment law in this sense. So you ask certain a strategic question whether you have tried to solve the problem, normally by way of guidance. If you are in a situation with your employer, it is normally better if you try to solve the problem informally before actually going forward. For one reason or another, normally costs and also the complexity of the process, also trying to do things amicably first, but if not, then you move forward and you kind of like what steps you might have taken and what was the outcome, if any. And then you proceed to try to understand if there was a grievance, if a grievance was raised, and also at what stage has been reached with the grievance. And you can look a bit in detail about raising a grievance. This is a study which an individual can do. You can go to gov.uk and look at work, but also you can visit the other of the website which I have mentioned in my other videos, which I will continue to mention in this series. This is work in the United Kingdom, which help people in the United Kingdom as information, but also as guidance, but also as a conversation, because this is a YouTube program. We leave a comment below if you know anything about employment law, and also leave a comment below. Watching this video, share with family and friends, and most of all visit gov.uk. And like I said in the other video, it's best if a person try to take responsibility for their lives and for the life of people around them. That is a good practice. If you're a child, if you're an adult, if you're an elder, because you see, we live and grow and also retire with work. Work is part and parcel of our livelihood. So going forward through these stages, this is the law on how to solve a problem of employment, which is part of work in the United Kingdom. If you are not in the United Kingdom, please watch this material and remember what happened in the UK, particularly if you are European or even an American. In particular, if you are actually in the developed world, more or less what happened legally and policy-wise in one aspect, in this case employment, is similar to what happened in your country, especially also in Africa, because Africa is practicing capitalism and the system of market and also privatization, which now intensifies the situation, the relationship between employer and employee. The reason I'm actually talking about employment, because it is the primary source of income. My aim is to talk about income and also emphasize that if you want money, you have to work. Otherwise, you don't get money from anywhere unless you beg or you rely on charity. We have already talked about the benefit system in the United Kingdom, only talking about universal credit. There are different aspects of universal credit, and it has been a very good exercise. It is also about income. The reason I spoke about benefit or money given in the United Kingdom, because I was trying to talk about income, and my reason for talking about income is to talk about the cost of living crisis, which is what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about from different contexts, from the context of employment, from the context of income from employment. I will be repeating my opinion about the minimum wage, which I believe the UK government need to raise the level up to at least to 20 or 30,000 pounds per annum in net, to get the British people out of poverty. And this policy should be negotiated between the UK and the rest of the Western world, the Eastern world, the African world, so that especially in Africa, the people of the world can be removed out of poverty by good economic policy, by humane economic policy. It is complex. It is almost impossible to ask the government to raise the level of minimum wage, because the country has been sold off to the few who are multimillionaires and multi-billionaires, the health sector, the educational sector, everything has been sort of because of capitalism, because of marketization, because of privatization. I have mentioned this and I will be mentioning again because it's so important. Today we have the middle class. As I said in the opening, middle class are forming in the United Kingdom about 40 to 50%, but they get credit, they get paid, but the average pay in this country for the middle class is between 30,000 maybe and 90,000. If you're getting 100,000, it's very rare. And I'm not even talking about the average earnings or even any of the median earning or however you will describe them. This is the situation in the United Kingdom and also in the Western world and in Asia and Africa. The low pay is a problem. If it is welfare benefit, whether it is pay, pay is normally a primary source of dispute. Let us go back to look at these guidelines in terms of addressing the problem of employment, and I'm using this to illustrate the broader political and also policy issue and also the social aspect, because when you talk about pay, when you talk about employment, it's a social policy issue which affects humanity. When you talk of social, we talk about society, we talk about people. Employment not as an economic tool, but also as a social tool, which is what I am more interested in, because as an economic tool is increasingly now benefiting the super rich. But to benefit the rich, the people should be paid. The pay from employment, from work, should increase, and also from benefit in the United Kingdom, and this should be negotiated by the UK government across the globe, which is intending to take the people of the world out of poverty in the first instance, and then all the other problems will begin to look at how to solve in order to bring peace. Let us continue. We look at this checklist. We're looking at disciplinary action, if any, if it has been, if an employer has actually taken any disciplinary action against his employee, someone like yourself, or you are where you are being advised by an advisor, and if so, when and what stage this disciplinary process has actually reached. These are some of the checklists in the critical question you ask in analyzing law and policy on employment. Then you look at whether the client or someone who is an employee has disability, because in the United Kingdom, disabled people by law are allowed to work, and to the extent that they are supported in one way or the other. And we're also looking at if an employer is a member of the trade union, and if so, which trade union the employer is actually also what its contact details. These trade unions, what their contact details are. You can also ask the question as to whether the employer as the employee as insurance, which will pay your legal costs. Because if you are disputing with your employer, you are more likely than not to incur legal costs. It being the case that more or less you are not going to be entitled to legal aid unless otherwise stated. And legal aid is a topic also you can read about at gov.uk and all online in one way or the other, accessing various internet. If you watch the rest of my video, you will find I have actually pointed viewers to one website or another. This website can be accessible globally if you are in Africa, because the structure is similar, if not the same, in such as you would find in Europe, in other European countries, but particularly in Africa, maybe slightly different. But we are practicing capitalism, so the law and the practices may be similar either to Europe or America and a bit of Asia. So quite similar. States, governments are quite similar, and the laws are quite similar. One law in one country may help a person in another country, and also this kind of information can enlighten an individual and can empower the communities and families to try and talk to their members of parliament to ask them, in my opinion, and to let, especially the level of pay. For me, as a the setting of minimum wage for me is extremely important, an important role which the government should continue to consider across the globe. And in your country, the minimum wage is my main aim of talking about employment. Although I may talk about certain specifics, which is an other additional benefit of this material. And thank you so much for watching this far. And we'll talk about policy, insurance policy, which may also help to cover legal costs. Stay tuned and continue watching. Stay tuned, continue watching. Thank you so much. And normally when you are trying to solve legal and policy issue at practical level, time limits are really important. Then if you are also in the United Kingdom, which we are talking about the United Kingdom, there is something called ACAS. ACAS is kind of an agency which is where actually they're independent. The help employee and employer in terms of conciliation. This is a procedure which applies to most employment tribunal. And so ACAS, you within certain time limits, you must notify ACAS of your potential claim before you can make a claim to the employment tribunal. So it's a prelude to making a claim at employment tribunal, because when you get employment problem, there is always claim, and one sort or another, and that is the nature of dispute. There will always be claim and counterclaim in terms of relationship which is in law, based on certain policies. So the early conciliation procedures apply to most employment tribunal claims and will affect the time limit for those claims. So if you keep the time, you are better off, because sometimes if the time limits expire, then the case fails in one way or the other. So we're looking about early conciliation process before actually proceeding the dispute to a employment tribunal. So you look at the date by which an application would have been made to take a case or to an employment tribunal. These are some of the specifics, and also you check if the client has been informed of the time limits. So or if you're doing your DIY, you be inform yourself of the time limit. You kind of like have yourself. We're talking about empowerment of people who may be in need, because more and more, like I said before, professionals are there, but sometimes they are costly. A lot of the time they don't have the facilities or the resources to help the British people. But if information on gov.uk is anything to go by, then it is something everybody should learn from time to time to access if in a situation where they're disputing with their employer as employee, where the relationship needing to kind of like be done with say early conciliation with, for example, ACAS. And if you have to find out when the early conciliation ended, and also if any, and if it has been done and it's recommendable to actually contact ACAS, you can Google ACAS online and find out who they are. You should use the dates to work out your deadline to apply to an employment tribunal. We'll talk about deadline. We are also going to proceed to talk at to look at the contract which you might or might not have, whether the contract you have with your employer is written, it's a written contract, whether if you have a written statement of main terms of conditions, because within any contract there are primary a written statement of the main terms and conditions of such a contract. And also you look at your job title, which are the small, fingerprinting of information to collect, and how much was your gross pay per hour, day, week, or month, and if you working part-time in terms of employment status, and also if when did you start work and when did you end work, the dates in its specificity, if any. Also, finding out what your employment status is. Like I said, you can check your employment status, or if an advisor, they can check it for you, your status, if you are not sure about that. And then you can also check if you have an illegal contract of employment. Of course, employment should be legal. They could potentially be illegal. So you look at that. For example, if the client is working without a work permit in the United Kingdom, if you want to work, you have to have access to work by law, also known as having a work permit, or you're permissible if you need it or if you don't need it. If you move into the United Kingdom, you might be in a situation where you might need a work permit, but if you are a resident, then you are by default allowed to work in the UK. You check for those in terms of whether or not it is illegal or otherwise, and you also check if you're not paying tax. You might be paying tax or not, or national insurance. These are issues involving the law of employment, of contract, and the nature of your work, if it is legal, involving paying tax and national insurance. So these details are really interesting, in addition to being important. So you can look in more detail about contracts of employment. So let us look at what is your current situation, and we will talk about situation which is normal in life, but in terms of employment, you will look at it in its specificity. You kind of like the problem to do with you, whether you have stopped working for the employer, whether or not you're still working for the employer, and whether you're still working for your employer. You examine this, whether you are discriminated against when applying for your job. So we going forward, we'll be looking at the specific with a lot of interest. Good for meeting and time also. We also look if you have stopped working for the employer in its specificity, and whether your employer have taken disciplinary action against the employee, and also the disciplinary procedure you look at specifically, and you also look if the employee think they are being made redundant, and more about being dismissed or being redundant. You can look at this specific, and you can also find out if you have lost your job because your employer has become insolvent and a liquidator or receiver has been appointed. These are specific information relating to what I have said generally, and more about your rights when your employer becomes insolvent. Sometimes in life, businesses get solvent. They become insolvent, as it were. They shut down one way or the other. This will impact on employee. In this situation, it poses employment problem. So you also figure out if they have lost their job because the employer has ceased trading and their workplace has closed. It went out of business by its nature. they just close naturally. So we're looking at also redundancy in these circumstances, and also whether your job you lost your job because the employer sees training, and you are being owed money, because you can be redundant when the business closes down, but also you are in the process being owed money by your employer. This is to be ascertained if that is the situation. So you also look at your rights, or the right of the employee when they lost their job, and whether they are owed money, your rights, what they mean. These are to be checked, to be looked at. And if you lose your job because the business has been transferred to a new owner, or because the work is now being done by another company, sometimes this happens when you sell or buy or just transfer in one way or another. The transference of businesses can be looked at into examination. Also, if you lost your job because something you have done, or the employer says you have done, that means there's something wrong, which is contrary to the contract and also to the agreement between you and your employer. And so you lost your job because the employer says you are not capable of doing the job. If you are competent or incompetent, you can look about the capability and dismissal. And also, these are some of the Jewish elements in looking at employment law and policy, which affect employer and employee in the United Kingdom. So you also check to see how you have lost your job, whether you lost your job because of illness or disability. You look about capability and dismissal also, and illness in employment. And if you are no longer working because you are a pregnant person, recently given birth to a child, or given birth to a stillborn child, or a miscarriage. All these are situations, especially mothers who have given birth, who have been pregnant, who gave birth to children, who probably have stillbirth or miscarriage, or whether their maternity rights at work, and their right not to be dismissed because of pregnancy or childbirth, or etc. And also to look at whether the employee resign either under pressure or in the heat of the moment. A constructive dismissal would be suspected or looked into as such, and what it is to be constructively dismissed, and whether the employer have a problem because they are leaving the job, and the employer owes them money, and all these are actually things you look at. You look at living when the employer still owes the employer still owes the employee money aside in this relationship. So you also look at the problem. The employer will not the problem that the employer will not give the employee a P45, which is a document recording your previous work or previous pay and all the similar record in a reference or written reasons for dismissal. Sometimes employer hostile, and these are some of the problems which you can deal with by yourself or through a lawyer or a legal advisor. So you're looking at getting tax advice also. You're looking at problem getting a job reference. You're looking at not getting written reasons for dismissal, which are important for when you want to move on to work. And you might also consider employee, whether they have been treated differently from the other workers because of age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage, and civil partnership, pregnancy, and maternity, race, religion, or belief, sex or sexual orientation, or because they work part-time or on a fixed term, a contract. We talk about discrimination in employment under this situation. Thank you so much. Continue watching.
Lupanga wadi o tanga wenye. Good for the ngara loropi. Tumone nani tenge ba. Mia yom tin ngara geope. Tumone nani tenge. Yabo yona ngara geope. Tumone nani tenge ba. Mia yom tin ngara geope. Tumone nani tenge. Yabo yona ngara loropi. Wang maloyo. Ba yobo yo ngara loropi. Iwe wang ma o. You dum ma poro wa chuna yom. Wang ma miela. You dum ma poro wa chuna yom. Wang ma nyono. You dum ma lenga wa miela ni. Wang ma nyono miela. Wang ma nyeno wa chuna yom. Wang ma poyo ru. Wang ma nyeno wa chuna yom.
Stay tuned, continue watching. Thank you so much. We are still looking at employment in the United Kingdom. We are continuing to look at the specifics in terms of law in the United Kingdom and policy in the UK in relation to employment, and also doing so to understand what are the specifics needed when you are helping yourself in a situation where there is a problem involving employment. You look at some specific where you find out if the employee is still working for the employer, and under this subheading you find out if the employee been told or do they fear they are going to lose their job. And sometimes if they are still working, if there is dispute, there are situation of imbalance in terms of power relation, and then the client may have been told, or whether they fear they are going to lose their job. If the employer using a dismissal in disciplinary procedure, normally in law and policy you need a procedure to be followed accurately for purposes of validity. If so, what stage has been reached in terms of disciplinary procedure, for example, normally involving employee maybe being dismissed, and you also look at the employee whether they are raised or considered raising a grievance against their employer. You check that, and also if also the employee is an employee necessarily and wants to make a claim to an employment tribunal, and also if they should raise a grievance first, if they are written, if they are within the time limit. Remember, we discussed the time limit. Leave a comment below if you know employment law in the United Kingdom. These are specific materials, but I will also interconnect this specificity with generalization in terms of broad policy, and also will be making comment going forward. But for now, let us just stick with this specific. Leave a comment below what you think. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and share with family and friends. Subscribe, click like, and also leave a comment like I said, and click notification bell as always. Thank you so much. And let's go back to looking at the specificity of material, and also we are looking at grievances, and we're looking also at time limit, and also if they don't raise a grievance and later go to a tribunal, they might get less compensation. We're talking about compensation, which is really what you get in terms of maybe money or some form of kind of like resolving of the situation. And let us also look at if the employer believe they are actually going to be made redundant as in fearing. So we are looking at unfair dismissal, we are looking at the redundancy also, and we're also looking if the employee is going to lose their job because the employer has become insolvent and a liquidator or a receiver has been appointed. These are specific in terms of employment law and policy. So we're looking at employees' rights when an employer is insolvent, and also going to if the employee is going to lose, or do they fear they will lose their work and also their job. If they will lose or their job because the business has been transferred to a new owner, or because the work is now being done by another company. Therefore, we will look at transfer of a business as a concept, and therefore is the employee going to be dismissed because of something they have done or the employer says they have done. So more about reason for dismissal. There is always a reason for a dismissal. We look at that, and also if the employee is going to be dismissed because the employer says they are not capable of doing the job. We'll talk about capability and dismissal. If the employee is going to be dismissed because of illness, we'll talk about illness and dismissal, identifying unfair dismissal as well. Under these circumstances, and we are looking at whether the employee is going to leave their job or be dismissed because they are pregnant, have recently given birth, or had a stillborn child or a miscarriage. We're looking at maternity at work. We are looking at right not to be dismissed because of pregnancy or childbirth. So we are also going to consider a situation of the employee being dismissed. We will ask them if they have appeal the decision. It's a situation where you can appeal one decision or another, whether they don't appeal. If they don't appeal and later go to a tribunal, they might get less compensation, like I said. And you're also trying to see if there is a problem because the employer owes the employee money and they are about to leave the job. You check that all these are actually smoking guns, which is necessary if you are looking at specificity of information. If you are leaving when the employer still owes you money, if you want to resign your job from your job of your own accord, and also looking at resignation and looking at and if you want to resign from your job because you feel you have no other option, you feel forced to do so, and you might be experiencing a situation of constructive dismissal, like in constructive dismissal. So also you have you can have a situation where your employer change a term in your contract, or they want to, for example, hours pay, holiday, or sickness pay. You can check if the employee has raised a grievance and what the result was. You look at changes to contracts, raising a grievance there. And we are also going to look at when you want to take time off work, or if you are in dispute with your employer about taking time off, and also you try to consider right of time off work, and also in a situation where you question whether or not the employer or the employee has any right of that sort to take time of work if and as necessary. So if the employee have a problem because the employer owes them money, you find that out, and you also look at deductions from wages, because these are some of the things we employee may be looking if there is an harassment or bully against the employee, and you're looking at harassment and bullying as situations of solving one problem or another in relation to employment. So the employer, you check whether the employee probably has been treated differently from other employees because of age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex or sexual orientation. Or you might actually have to consider whether they are treated differently because they work part-time or on a fixed contract. If the client is an employee and wants to make a claim to an employment tribunal, they should raise a grievance first. And we're looking at discrimination as a problem and also raising a grievance. Continue watching. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for keeping in with this material, with watching this material. Today we have been talking about diagnosing a problem between employee and employer, or between employers and employees, and looking in specific how to identify a problem, how to do a diagnosis of an employment problem, looking at checklists, but also looking at other requirements, as there may be, whether there is. Next time we are meeting, we're going to talk about continuous employment. We're going to talk about a week's pay, how to calculate a week's pay. Hopefully we will be able to cover those. But broadly, my main aim is really to look at these materials to try to understand how employment rules in terms of law and policy operate in the United Kingdom, which is quite the same or similar to what happened in Europe or America. In the opening of this material, I mentioned that. Also trying to mention this because employment is the primary factor in terms of income. But my appeal to the British government and also the government of the world, when people work for a living, work is extremely important, because like I said in the opening, if you work, you succeed. If you don't work, you don't succeed, as simple as that. And so it is a fraud almost at the political level in the country, where the government fail to provide employment for people. But I say work as such can also be self-employed in the small and medium context, but also work in terms of investment and also entrepreneurship. Work today at least come in all shapes and sizes, in the small, medium, that also the people of the middle class who may earn decent money working as employee, part-time or apprenticeship, or in other aspects. But my concern about work generally in the United Kingdom, but also maybe across the globe, is actually the level of pay should go up, so that work should pay in terms of getting the people of the world, British people in particular, also people in the world, out of poverty. And this, I said, because of low pay in the United Kingdom, or because of low pay across the globe. That is why you see problems to do with the crisis of the cost of living, which I've been talking about. I believe it or not, when I look at employment in the United Kingdom, I talk about the cost of living crisis, which is a crisis caused by different factors, but the main cause of the cost of living crisis is low pay in the United Kingdom, which is low pay across the globe. It's a form of corruption from the state, and the state colluding with the multimillionaires and the billionaires. Because you see, we live in a world of politics and policy where multimillionaires and billionaires are treated like gods or demigods in society, which is unfair. It may not be illegal because the law has its own truth. And when I talk about human culture, like as I said in the beginning of this program, culture is about respecting people, prioritizing humanity. I have said this thing over and over, and if you've been watching my video, you're probably getting tired of the idea of culture, development, and all these and progress. But I will be saying that again and again, because this program is based entirely on peace. I want peace, I want happiness. Because when we do the right thing as society, whether we do development, whether we do culture, whether we do progress, because culture plus development is equal to progress. Progress is what we benefit from, what actually brings changes, like in technology, you know, in terms of wealth creation. These are all factors we value. But I have argued in terms of cultural identity that we as a species should value humanity more over and above even wealth, even power, even the idea of rule. But now the violence comes from when a certain individual want to rule over other people and also use violence, use force, including using wealth, employment as a system of slavery. The genesis of capitalism began when slavery began also in different parts of the world, like in Africa, like, you know, in the Caribbean, in America, in Europe. There have been a lot of evil. There have been robbery at sea, you know, pirates, you know, the Wild West robbing in America. And in Africa, you know, there are thieves, you know, cattle rustlers, the nomads in Africa. Even to this day, there is still cattle rustling in Africa. Animals are being stolen. People are being killed in the process. Human beings can be worse than animals. And this is nothing to do with Britain, nothing to do with anybody. It is just a human condition, which is at the heart of my discussion, at the heart of this program. It doesn't matter which topic I use. Like now, I'm using employment as you know, I'm looking at the legal aspect of employment, because the law is what the government used to govern a country. We talk in democracy, or also in freedom terms. We talk about the rule of law, which is what also governs employment. It governs every aspect of our life. Even I speak now, I speak within law. If in my speaking on this platform, I break certain law, I get into trouble. Whether I know it or not, a lot of the time people are unaware of what laws cover what activity. And it is my invitation that we become experts, legal experts, as children, as youth, as adults. And I will be repeating this point because they are so central to the idea of peace. And we are very capable. We are intellectuals by birth, as a species. We are the most intellectually developed species. As humans, we are the most intellectually developed. Whether we like it or not, we're intelligent. We are more intelligent than the rest of the animal species within the animal kingdom. As a human, you know, family, we are very advanced. We have created technologies. We are still creating more technology in medicine, in building, in construction. You name it. We are so wholesome as a species. We use our brains. We think. We are thinkers. We are better thinkers than animals. And you find that some people now, because of political reason, political violence, they try to equate humanity with animals, with trees. And this is incorrect. Money is not more important than a human being. A human being is superior to anything else. These things, other things are valuable. Even the aliens, if they are there, if they are visiting our planet, there are rumors that there are species which are not human. They are now, they are kind of like, they are trying to copy the way we look. You meet a person on the street, they may not be human. And if you comment below if you think there are aliens in the world where you meet somebody on the street, you think they are humans, but they are actually aliens. If that is the case, leave a comment below, let me know. We are going to stop this material here. I'm so grateful. We may not have done as much as we normally do, but you know, we cannot really despise small beginnings. We are a work in progress. I'm so glad I discussed this. Leave a comment below and let me know. Subscribe to this channel, share the video with family and friends, and let me know what you're thinking. Click notification bell, click like. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.